On that cold and wet September day, many years ago, Charles had taken a week's trip to Paris. He had a wonderful time there, spending his lavish days tasting red wine, rosé wine, along with a tasty selection of the finest French cheeses. All week long, the sun had been a pearl in the sky with a softish yellow glow. Charles had stayed in a hotel in Central Paris with 11 pools. Despite the all-inclusive luxury, he mostly enjoyed the trip there and back home. The music was like gold, but in a musical form. Whilst he was taking the boat trip back home, something terrible had happened. Everybody was in the biggest ballroom of the ship, enjoying a buffet of English and French food and listening to live music. It was all wonderful. The food was so tasty and the music was so marvellous that nobody noticed the water pouring in over the hardwood, expensive flooring. Screams of terror could be heard erupting out of nowhere. As fast as he could, Charles ran for a lifeboat. He grabbed a paddle and made his way back to England. The sea was roaring. Every few minutes, the sea sprayed him in the face. The waves were like tsunamis. They came up high, then crashed back down again. The boat was listing, and Charles began to feel queasy. Something shot out of the water and hit him directly in the face. He had no idea what it was. Lightning thrashed and thunder boomed, and rain fell heavier than ever. Charles could taste salt and hear wind echoing in and out of his ears. The water stung his eyes. It felt like knives plunging right into his head. The clouds were extremely low and as black as ink. Charles was using all of his strength to try to control the boat. He couldn't see England, nor could he see France. The longer he kept his eyes open, the more sore, wet and cold they got. He could smell the salty air and the damp timber raft. Charles felt a gust of wind swish across his face. The waters were refusing to calm down. He knew he wouldn't survive it. Without warning, the small boat capsized, throwing him into the freezing cold water and filling his nostrils with salty seawater. Charles was stuck under the boat, so he pushed one side hard and flipped the boat back upright. Using the little strength he had left, he hauled himself back onto the raft. Panting in relief, he sat up. He thought he saw a black object floating about the ferocious waves. He couldn't quite figure out what it was too far away. As he came closer, he knew it was wooden, but he couldn't be sure. It was fairly close now, and it looked like a cello case. Using the very scarce strength he had left, he reached out to grab the case. Firstly, it slipped out of his hand, but he was determined to get it on board. With a final hard tug, Charles got it onto the ship. When he had got his breath back, he sat up and tried to figure out how to open the cello case. He found 2 latches. They were rusted from the seawater. Goodness knows how long it had been floating about for. Using frostbitten fingers to open cold metal latches wasn't easy, but it was coming. Click, it was open. Charles stuck his fingers in his mouth to warm them up again. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted up the lid. He couldn't believe his eyes. There, wrapped in Beethoven music paper, was a beautiful baby girl. Her hair was as striking as a lightning bolt, and as yellow as the yellowest oil paint. Her twinkling blue eyes were like sapphires. Charles felt like he could get lost inside her eyes. England was in view now, so Charles chose to swim the rest of the distance home. Swimming whilst holding a large cello case with a miner inside it wasn't easy, but he was a good swimmer, so it wasn't hard. When he got to the shore, Charles had blue fingers and face. He felt like he needed to check the baby. When Charles opened the lid, he saw a happy, cheerful baby. Charles had no idea why anybody would want to leave this child. He would get home quickly because he was only a few streets away from his home on West Avenue. Nobody knows what caused the sinking of the ship on that cold and wet September day.